Good day, everyone. Thank you for coming to the online programs at College of Education at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana. We have an alumni panel for us all this evening. And for those of you watching us back recording or whatever time zone you are around the world, I am Travis Giffen, the Assistant Director of Online Programs here in the College of Education. And I have with us three alumni from our programs that are here this evening. We have this evening broken up into two parts. We'll start with some questions about each of their student experiences and give each of the panelists a chance to respond and provide their thoughts and answer those questions. Then we will pause on that and open it up for questions from all of you who are joining us this evening to ask questions, and then we will move into the second part of our presentation, which will focus on questions about the careers and what they are doing now, and then open things up again for more questions from all of you that might pertain more specifically to their careers or what it is that they do. And then we should have time to open up for any other questions you might have for our panelists this evening. So I'm going to first give each of our panelists just a moment to introduce each other. We'll do introductions in the same order that we'll ask questions for the first round, and then we'll go in reverse for the second round to just make sure everybody has enough time to chat. And with that, Adrian, could you introduce yourself to everybody here first?
Yeah, thanks, Travis. My name is Adrienne Lane, and I just graduated last May with my master's in curriculum and instruction with a focus on bilingual and bicultural education. I also did a minor in global studies and Latin American studies, and I am currently living in Quito, Ecuador, where I am teaching English at the French Embassy School.
Thanks, Adrian. And I also forgot, I have a quick poll for folks while we're finishing up introductions. Brian, could you go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, thank you, Travis, and hello to everybody, and thank you, Travis, for having me. I appreciate being here. My name is Brian Egan. I'm a recent graduate of the EdD online program with a focus on global studies. My advisor was Dr. Ellison Witt, and generally speaking, my dissertation focused on study abroad and short-term programs that looked at reflection and community engagement. I currently work at Michigan State University. I'm a senior specialist and work as an international student coordinator, as well as an assistant director of student affairs. So it's a bit of an overview. I do some teaching and as well as some administrative work, but can answer more particular questions or specific questions later.
Thanks, Brian. And Emily, could you introduce yourself for everyone?
Hi, my name is Emily Bridges. I am currently in my 8th year as a high school English teacher. I currently teach in the Fairfax County public school system in Virginia. I graduated in 2022 with a master's in curriculum and instruction with a focus on perspectives and practices.
Thank you. And thank you all again for your willingness to participate tonight and answer some questions for everybody. Really appreciate your time. And with that, we'll get started with the first round of questions. So the first question that I have for each of you is, what were you doing before you started your program? We'll start with Adrian.
Yeah, so before I started my program, I did kind of a total career switch with this program. I was working as a business analyst for an insurance company, but I had volunteered as a teacher here in Ecuador right after my undergrad. And so that kind of instilled this passion for education. And so when I decided to do the career switch, the program at UIUC really helped me do that. And I was able to do the program online while I was still working for the insurance company. And then also when I moved back to Ecuador and was teaching full-time down here.
Thank you. Brian, could you answer the question next?
Yes, of course. So for me, I have been working at Michigan State for probably about 17 years, but in the role that I had as an academic advisor in the College of Social Science prior to or just around it, admittedly, I started in fall 19 in the online ED program. And if we think about what happened like 5 or 6 months later, a lot of that begins to be a blur, right? And so, but it was around that time that I had applied for my current job as an assistant director of student affairs and international engagement coordinator. And so I've been in my current role about 3 years. Um, but yeah, so I have a background in higher ed. My master's degree is in student affairs. So I've been working in higher ed for about 17 years, and I have some advice on that, but I can hold off until later too, that kind of surround these topics.
Thanks, Brian. And Emily, could
Yeah.
you let us know what you were doing before you started your program?
So I had taught for 5 full years in middle school and high school classrooms before I started my program. And I was at the time actually working in a private school and was the head of the English department there. And I was really interested in auditing our curriculum and working to ensure that we had an equitable focus in our classrooms on the voices represented. And so that was kind of what drew me to the program at IUC in the first place. And obviously I'm still in the classroom today. So now I actually just get to put a lot of what I learned into practice.
Thanks, Emily. The next question is that I have for each of you is, why did you select the program that you ended up graduating from? Let's start with Adrienne.
Yeah, so I mentioned this a little bit in the prior question, but with this program, it really allowed me to make that career change, going from corporate insurance to education. And I really wanted a program where I would be able to complete the program from here in Ecuador. It worked out really well with the time zone because it's in the same time zone. So that was really convenient. And then just with the class schedule and the workload, I was able to work full time as well. And then being an English teacher, the bilingual, bicultural concentration was a great fit for me as well.
Thank you, Adrienne. And Brian, what were you doing, or why did you select the program that you selected?
Yeah, thank you. So I selected the program principally because it was recommended to me from someone who was in the program probably about a year prior. And so it came as a really solid recommendation. I had been thinking about going back and earning my doctorate degree for some time. This is basically what I alluded to in the previous question, but held off. But so this is sort of the answer. This kind of gets at that. And so this program provided a lot of flexibility. It's from another Big Ten institution. The classes, I would concur strongly that the time of the classes were convenient. So by the time that I got home from work, which was about 5 o'clock Eastern time, I'd have a little bit of time, right? It was a little bit of a crunch to get home and try and grab something to eat and right and get set up for class and switch gears mentally, right? But on the whole, it was a good time during the day because then, right, you had some time to sort of debrief your day after class. So the flexibility of the online component, and I formed a lot of friends, even though it was an online program. I had the opportunity to form some meaningful friendships with people, but I'll kind of hold off on that piece because there might be other questions that lead to that for later.
Thanks, Brian. Emily, why did you choose the curriculum instruction program?
Like Adrienne and Brian, I feel like I kind of started answering this question in my prior response, but I do think that I was looking for a program that aligned with my career goals and interests, and found that UIUC was a really good match there. But I'll also echo what Adrian and Brian also said beforehand, and that I found the program to just be very understanding of the fact that I was still working full time. So I found the schedule to be incredibly flexible, and my professors were, very understanding and supportive. I also just had kind of done some online research. And just had seen that UIUC was the online program was incredibly well respected nationally, and so I knew kind of going in that I would be working with just amazing professors, and so that was something I was really excited about.
Thank you. And then last question that we have here for each of you before we open things up for everybody else joining us is, what advice would you give to, current students or prospects considering the program that you graduated from?
So my advice would be, don't be afraid to explore your interests. That was something that I really got out of this particular program. I feel like anything I was interested in pursuing or any questions I had, reaching out to professors, they were super helpful. And now I kind of see myself going down a different career path in education than I never would have thought of when I started the program. But throughout the different opportunities and interactions that I had in this program, I kind of stumbled across a new subject and a new career avenue that I'm really passionate about and excited. And so that's what I really enjoyed about this program, is I feel like I could make it what I needed it to be and what I wanted it to be, with being able to add additional minors and things I was interested in. And then applying for a fellowship through a different department, I was able to study one of the indigenous languages here in Ecuador. And that I was able to use what I was learning through that fellowship in my master's program classes and really dive into research within that field. And now now I'm thinking a PhD after all that. And so that would be my advice is, first of all, definitely consider the program and talk to the professors and make it your own, and definitely pursue what you're interested in, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions and get support.
Thank you, Adrian. Brian, what recommendations would you have?
So some of the recommendations that I would add to that is, if you want to go back and to pursue a degree, whether it be master's or a doctoral degree, don't wait too long, right? It's too long right. It means something to each of us differently. But from my point of view, from my experience, I did sit on it for a while, just because it never seemed like the right time. And so maybe it will never be the right time. And in my case, fortunately, I had really good friends and colleagues who frankly got sick of me talking about going back to get my terminal degree and just said, like, are you going to do it or not? Right. So hopefully you've got someone who will help you be honest with yourself and stick to a goal that you have and kind of push you to that point of deciding or not. And so that was the decision that I made. And quite honestly, if I had waited another year, again, not to mention, what happened again the following year, but the point is, you never know what'll happen in life. That's just obviously how life goes. But you're all here, right? So you all are thinking about going back and pursuing a degree. And so if that's something that's important to you, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that. Just jump right into the deep end, do your research, of course, right? Talk to people. I'm happy to reconnect if that's useful. Review faculty bios, right? See if research interests with faculty align with yours. Get to know people. I was also able to work on a research project with my advisor that was really meaningful and helpful. So that hands-on experience is really, really, truly important. And if the degree helps you with your long-term goals, then that I would reiterate, jump in and do it, because you just never know where life will take you. And it's important to have that next credential, whatever it is in terms of your long-term career goals, assuming, right, it's in higher ed.
Thanks, Brian. Emily, what advice would you have for current students or students that might be considering applying for your program?
I think once again, I'm just going to start by kind of echoing something that Adrian and Brian said, in that I just would strongly encourage students to reach out to their professors. So many of the professors are so excited to support personal interests and passions and help find avenues to, support that, whether it's through research or funding. Also, I think that one of the things that I took away most from the program is, just be open and excited to learn in all of your classes, whether, it's a class that was a prerequisite or required for your degree. I learned so many incredible things in all of my classes, and so many of them are things that I'm still applying in my classroom, whether it's, technology that I learned about through the program, or a curriculum that I designed for a class that I got really excited about that now I get to use with my actual students. And so, just be open and curious and willing and ready to learn. And then also, I would just say, make sure that you're looking at the course catalog and course offerings. If there are courses that you're interested in taking, just know that one, might just be available in the spring versus the fall. And so, always be kind of looking ahead to what are the things that you're interested in studying, or the professors you're interested in working with, just so that you can kind of plan out your program in that way.
Thanks, Emily. Now's the time we're gonna open it up for questions from everybody here. Also, in order to help get things moving along, please feel free to introduce yourself. Say if you're a current student, or let us know where you're from in the chat. You can ask your questions in the chat. I'm happy to read them out for you, or you can go ahead and either put yourself on video or unmute yourself and ask that question. We'll give each of our panelists an opportunity to answer that. While folks are thinking of questions or anything like that, I know, Brian, you had said that there were a few other things that you had held off on earlier. Didn't know if we wanted to go back to that. Maybe start with, I think you had more that you were potentially going to add for, why did you choose the program that you selected, and about faculty?
Sure. Yeah, or the other thing I was going to mention, right, is given that it's an online program, right, it could suggest that it could be hard to get to know people. By that, I mean classmates, faculty, things of that nature. It is what you make of it, right? And so, in terms of me and my personality, I like to think I'm outgoing. That's just me. That said, right, I was able to make really good friendships with folks in my cohort. It's not a cohort model, but by that I mean more broadly, people who I went through classes with. To add to that, I had started, I don't remember what the first class I took was, right, because it was a while ago, but the example I want to give is that I made some friendships with 3 people with whom I was working on a group project with, and 2 of those people basically went through the same courses with me throughout the program, because we just got together and we're like, what do you need to take? Because we were in the same program, we were both doing the same concentration in global studies, so we had the same requirements, right? But you have obviously a menu of options you can make, and so we would get together and say, hey, like, we have similar interests, let's try and take some classes together. So the point is, you can make it what you want. Same with working with your faculty. Don't be shy. Get to know faculty, because you never know what kind of research opportunities they have that may align with your interests. Turns out that they will very likely be the folks who will write letters of recommendation for you, right? So they're all good things that can come out of that, but you can, if you seek them out, form really good and meaningful relationships with folks, despite the fact that your my program and others, right, that it's online. So I wouldn't let that deter you.
Thanks, Brian. And
Sure.
Adrian or Emily, I wanted to give each of you a chance before I ask the question that Jessica put in the chat about, how did you make connections or form relationships in the online program with either faculty or your fellow students?
Yeah, I mean, like Brian said, I'm a very social person, so that was one of my concerns as well doing the online program, even more so being abroad. But I mean, just reaching out to the faculty, like I mentioned in a previous question, they are willing to meet and help. And so, I mean, maybe making a little bit more effort to reach out and set meetings with faculty. Again, at least in my program, we did different group projects and things like that. So that gave us an opportunity to get to know some of the other people. And yeah, it's not a cohort model, but it's very common you have classes with some of the same people. So you kind of get to know them after several classes. And so, yeah, I mean, I was still able to make connections and even abroad, which was great. It was kind of like the best of both worlds in that sense.
Thanks, Adrian. And Emily, I wanted to make sure you had a chance to.
I think likewise, like what Adrian just said, I think making sure that you're being intentional, reaching out to professors, they're more than happy to schedule times to meet with you or, to stay a little bit after a class to answer any questions you have or just kind of get to know you a little bit better. I think that you definitely do attend classes with, some of the same individuals. And there are also a lot of opportunities in each class, but also just with assignments to collaborate with other students, which is a great way to get to know other people. I think also most of my classes were pretty small in size as well, which was another thing that I, found really valuable about the program. So it was much easier to get to know the professor, but also get to know people in discussion and, class projects and things like that.
Thanks, Emily. Also, just wanted to plug, there's also the graduate student conference that takes place each spring, both in person and online, that's available for all our current students. If you have questions about that or any other questions that don't get answered in this session, you can also reach out to us at online programs at education.illinois.edu, and we're happy to answer those for you, whether you're a current student or a prospective student, to get those answered for you. I want to make sure we get Jessica's question asked. So she asked, what skills did you learn specifically in your program that you were able to apply for your current positions?
Yeah, so for me, like I mentioned with this program, it was a career switch for me. In my undergrad, I didn't study education. I studied organizational communication and leadership. And so for me, being a classroom teacher, getting some of those classroom and more application-based skills was really important. And so, in different classes, making curriculum plans, making lesson plans, discussing and reading about different strategies that I could use in my classroom in real time were some of the most valuable skills for me, especially being someone who didn't have that prior educational background in education and teaching. That was really beneficial for me.
Thanks, Adrian.
So for me, I would say, although my job doesn't require research, I would have to say that having the hands-on experience in terms of putting together research and talking it through with my advisor and my committee certainly was a big tool that I learned and how to do it formally. We probably all do, general research on things throughout the day or in our lives, but in terms of putting together a dissertation like that, that was a big one for me, and learning the skills, because I'm someone who, in terms of my learning style, is a hands-on person, and so having someone help walk me through those individual steps in terms of putting together the various pieces and the chapters of the dissertation were really useful, as well as generally learning um, how to become a better instructor. So part of my job, small part, but a part of my job requires teaching. So I teach two non-disciplinary courses, but kind of having the opportunity to learn how other instructors teach. That was a valuable lesson and tool for me as well.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
How about you, Emily?
I think for me, so my master's in curriculum and instruction, that's what I do every day as a teacher, is build and, design curriculum, and then I'm instructing in the classroom. I can just give you some examples from the fall so far. One of the classes that's really stuck with me the most was informational children's literature with Dr. Moeller. And that was a class that was focused on how we teach nonfiction to students. And so I actually, one of the courses I teach is an interbaccalaureate program that is called Language and Literature. And so the class, we do read literature, but there's also a strong focus on teaching students or giving students the skills to analyze nonfiction and non-literary texts. And so a lot of the activities that I designed for that class with Dr. Moeller are things that I actually use in my own classroom today. One of the things that we did is, after reading the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, I had my students go to the library or to a bookstore and look at examples of biographies about Frederick Douglass that are written for children, just to kind of look at how are difficult topics being presented to children, just to kind of examine. We think of nonfiction as fact, but those facts are always interpreted by the creative decisions that authors are making. And so that was something that my students really sparked a lot of ideas and things like that. But that's actually an activity that we did in Dr. Moeller's class.
Thanks, everybody. I'll give folks see if there's any other question that they have. Otherwise, Styles.
Hello, my name is Styles Siemens. I'm not an alum, I'm a prospective student. I've been talking to Brianna Davis about a grad cert program. I think that's the best route for me. I got into education in 2018, shortly after I withdrew from law school. My question is, what would you recommend for a history major? Would my best bet be to take online courses to see if the teaching licensure path is best fit for me, or should I jump right in and apply for a master's?
Thanks for the question, Styles. See, our panelists are thinking. It's great to hear that you're working with Brianna while everybody's thinking of their response. Brianna's a great resource, so glad to see you here this evening.
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is a good question. I I don't have a background as a history teacher, so I'm not the best person to answer this. But just my initial response would be, for me, it was also a career shift, but I had taught before. And so I had that classroom experience, and I knew for sure that was something I wanted to pursue. So maybe my advice for you is, if there's a way you can get some experience in the classroom to know for sure if it's the route that you want to go. maybe like substitute teaching or teaching online or something like that. And then that might give you a better direction which program is the best fit for you, because it is a big decision and there's a lot of different options. And so that would be my advice, just getting some more classroom experience and then having a better idea which route is the best fit for you.
Yeah, and then thanks, Adrian. The only other thing that I think, and I'm sure Brianna's talked with you about this as well. You said you were looking at a graduate certificate program, that a graduate certificate program's, great first step if you're considering a master's, or even to explore the program and classes in order to get that graduate certificate. Those graduate certificates can, build into master's if that's something that you end up considering also. So thank you for the question.
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, so I don't have a whole lot to add other than underlining what Adrian said. As someone who has done a lot of work and research on experiential learning, I would echo that advice, which was to try and go and learn what you can, shadow folks, ask questions, observational research, right? See what you can find out. Sounds like you're already doing that. But yes, I would just echo that. Other than that, I'm sorry, I don't have a whole lot to add.
I also am not, I don't have a history background, and I'm probably not the best person to answer this question, but I would just say that I think that that experiential learning would also, I agree, would be something that would just be helpful for you before taking a big step in joining a program or getting a certificate. But I will also say that like I was saying with my last response, I do think that if you decide to go down this path, if you decide that that's what you want to pursue in the future, I personally, as someone who is in the classroom, have found that the practical skills that I gained in the program definitely have benefited me in the classroom, if that is what you decide to pursue.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you.
Sorry, Travis, if I could jump in as well. So hi, Styles. I had online programs here for the college and wanted to add another thought or two. I think you got some good suggestions from our panelists here. In the College of Education, there are quite a few historians that work in the Department of EPOL, for example, Education Policy, Organization, and Leadership. So if you do some substitute teaching like Adrian suggested, and you decide that you like the field of education, but you don't want to necessarily be in the classroom, there are some options for you. You can still be in the larger field of education, but outside the classroom. And if you look at the EPOL program, you'll see there are some trajectories there, some paths there that you can explore. So that's another option for you. You could still, and there are quite a few professors who started out as historians that are in the College of Education. So the path that you're considering is not totally uncharted territory. So stay hopeful, and there may be some options here in the college for you.
Thank you. Ophelia, I see that you have your hand raised, or
Yes, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yep, sure can.
Okay, so Travis, actually, I have one question, maybe two questions to you first, and then I may have one for Brian following your responses. So I am interested in your online doctoral program, and I want to thank the panelists because they certainly put me at ease, because when you explore other online doctorate of education programs, they do operate on the cohort model. Having said that, are there any requirements for doctoral students to come to campus at any point?
I could answer this, but I'll let you go, Brian.
Oh, okay. I was going to defer to you first. The answer that I would share in my experience is no. I did not have to go to campus. I think, to be completely honest, I think that is the official answer. So having been through the entire experience, I can tell you that the answer to that is no, including graduation. That said, I did go to graduation, and for that, I am super happy and grateful um, to have had the opportunity to feel a little bit more connected to the campus, but primarily, and to take a tiny step backwards, but primarily to meet in person some of the folks who I've been working with, my committee, my advisor, people like that who really shaped my experience. And so it was a little bit surreal to attend graduation in that respect. But that's probably a bit of a longer answer than you wanted. But again, the answer to that is no.
No, actually, Brian, I'm sorry, I was just going to interject for 1 second just to say, no, I actually appreciated those details because one of the things you alluded to that you felt like you still had those relationships with your professors, and I was going to ask, a little bit more about that because you said you had some research opportunities, I think, with your advisor. And I guess I'm
Yes.
wondering, did you feel like you were getting, and you can't see me all the way over here on the East Coast, I'm air quoting, the full experience in terms of connecting with your advisor, getting the support that you needed to cross that finish line that is typically provided to the students on campus that are going through, what is often deemed the regular experience, I guess you could say.
That's a good question. It's a difficult one though, right? Because you have the convenience of having or being in an online program, right? Come home from work, you can eat dinner while you're in class. People may not know. You have the convenience of home. You can, right? Like it's just super convenient.
Mm-hmm.
But as they say in life, you can't have it all, and I mean that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the flip side is that you do have to make it what you want. So I'm someone who's super persistent, and so I would make every effort to ask the questions. This was mentioned earlier, but to connect with instructors if I had questions before or after class. And so would I do that in right, if the program were in person? Yes. Would I prefer it to be in person? Sure. Um, but it's a give and take,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you have the convenience that offsets some of those other things. For me, because I didn't say this, it's just something that slipped my mind, but I intentionally chose a different institution um, for my doctoral program other than Michigan State, because I already had 2 degrees, undergraduate and master's from one institution. And if you work in higher ed, you know what I'm getting at. And so I
Right.
wanted to not only expand um, in that regard, but also expand in my professional network. So if I had not done that, I would not have had the opportunity to have worked with my committee, my advisor in particular, classmates from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. So yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Happy to expand. I was trying to remember, to touch on some of those key points, but if I didn't, please feel free to let me know.
No, that was really great. And I guess my last question, and I certainly apologize to my colleagues on the call. I don't mean to sort of hog and nor to the panelists not address questions to the overall group. But I think my last question to you, Brian, I noticed that you said you did research on the faculty. So you did feel as though you had the opportunity to work with anyone that you potentially wanted in the College of Education, or is there like a set or prescribe faculty that just teaches the online component that you were sort of directing potentially who you would want to work with. And I know that's a mouthful, so I'm certainly, willing to tease that out a little bit more if necessary.
Sure. I mean, yes, there are a couple of parts of, I think, the answers to those questions. So first, and in reflection, I'm pretty sure I even attended one of these
Okay.
before I started, because I knew, again, someone who was in this program a year prior, and so someone had sent me the email saying, here is an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the program. So I'm pretty sure I did that, but again, it was some time ago. So excuse me if I'm incorrect. That said, yes, I did research in terms of the faculty, especially those who were in the educational leadership and policy ED program. That was the program that I recently completed. So looking at faculty and faculty bios there, and then looking at their bios. So would their research potentially align with my interests? In other words, would it be a good fit? And so that was one of the deciding factors for me. Ultimately, when you hear back about your admissions decision, a faculty advisor will be assigned to you. And so that was a great fit for me, but I don't know what factors go into that decision. I can let others perhaps talk more about that. But yeah, so in my case, again, I had the opportunity to work with Dr. Witt, and that was a great fit for me.
Okay. Thanks so much.
As a follow-up. Sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Travis,
Yeah.
for allowing me to ask those 3 questions.
Thanks, Ophelia. And I see Styles, I think you have your hand raised. Do you have a question?
I do. I don't know if I mentioned it during my intro. I am a substitute teacher. I've been substitute teaching since 2018. I'm licensed for every county in the state of Illinois, including Indiana. I'm looking for a pathway to licensure. So I've read that the middle school grades cert is basically an educational preparation program. That's what I'm looking for, a program that's going to help me gain licensure. I have the classroom experience.
Yeah, so Brianna would be your best person to talk for that. That program just recently started, not too long after this. It is in the curriculum instruction department. So Adrian and Emily both would have had, probably some of the same classes and many of the same faculty. But yes, that would be the program that would probably be best for you if that's your interest, Styles. Did that answer your question? Do you have okay.
To the earlier question that Ophelia had as well, I want to add what Brian said is that there is a matching process that happens really. So when you write in your application what your research interests are, faculty will look to see if there is a faculty member that has research interests that are aligned with yours, and if they have availability to work with you. So that would be one of the factors that play into whether, when reviewing applications. So there's a very close matching that happens.
Yeah, and then that
Thank you.
did remind me, I just wanted to add, the official answer is, yeah, the EDD students and even the EDM students, any of our online programs, there's no in-person requirement for the online programs. So just wanted to give the official answer there too. I want to give Brian a chance to respond before I came in with the official answers so that you all knew he wasn't, didn't have to pay him to say what we want him to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And with that, we'll move on to the next set, 2 questions that I have for our panelists and move more into the career focus, give folks a chance to ask some of those questions, and then we can come back and open it up for any other questions that folks have for our panelists. So we'll go in reverse order this time. So we'll start with Emily, and then we'll go to Brian and then Adrian. I know you briefly shared in your introduction, about what it is that you were doing, but can you share, just remind everybody a little bit more about what it is that you're currently doing?
Absolutely. So currently I am a high school English teacher in the Fairfax County Public School System in Virginia. I currently teach 10th grade English and then a college level course through the Interbaccalaureate program that I mentioned earlier that focuses on both literature and nonfiction and non-literary works. And I am also really involved in multiple leadership positions at my school, including I'm a member of our equity team, and I am also a part of a teacher advisory council for the superintendent of Fairfax County Schools. And so I think that this program in a lot of ways helped me refine my focus and interest in the classroom. So kind of helped me come to understand that I actually really do enjoy teaching nonfiction and think that that's something that's increasingly important. And the program also just kind of gave me the confidence and knowledge to pursue some leadership positions that I currently hold.
Thanks, Emily.
So in reverse order, I'm still in the middle. So I work at Michigan State University. I'm a senior academic specialist in the College of Social Science. I'm an assistant director of student affairs and international engagement coordinator. Yes, that's long. What does that mean? Basically, it boils down to kind of a jack of all trades. I work with student success. So I work with students who are basically what we call an academic recovery. So students who might be on academic probation, recess, coming back to the university, things of that nature. I work with international students in the College of Social Science. I'm the contact for a number of minors in our college. I do some study abroad. I failed to mention that unintentionally at the onset, but I do work on some study abroad programs. It's not part of my official portfolio, given that this is being recorded. I wanted to say that as a disclaimer. But I do work on study abroad. That's my favorite part of some of the work that I do, hence the dissertation on the topic. The study abroads that I typically work at, are unique a little bit to MSU in that these programs are for pre-first year students. And so these are students who have already been admitted to MSU, but have not quite started yet. And so usually it's a 2-week program towards the end of July so that it gives students and families to have some time to have graduation ceremonies and parties, things of that nature, and just a little bit before the start of our fall semester. So usually late-ish July, early August, there's a number of programs around the country, outside of the country that students go on, but that's just a small sort of additional component that I wanted to add. I do some teaching. They're called UGS courses. That's undergraduate seminars. One of them that I teach currently in this semester is for first semester students. So to help students gain connections to folks on campus, administrators who also teach like myself, support networks, helping students learn things like well-being, financial health, stress management, things of that nature. And our particular course and section is limited to students in social science. So we work with students in our college. It also helps our retention, again, connections. I'm currently working on creating a new class for next semester for first year or second year students. I'm still teasing it out, but basically it'll focus on language and culture. That's very broad at the moment. The idea is that I would begin to teach this class on campus and then with the purpose of basically transplanting it into a study abroad in the near future.
And Adrian.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I am an English teacher in the American section in the French Embassy School here in Quito. So it's kind of complicated because it's an English or a Spanish speaking country, and I'm teaching at the French Embassy School. And so that's been a very interesting experience for me because my students are already bilingual. And so English is becoming their third language. And I teach in primary. So that's been a new experience for me as well. Previously, I've taught secondary and adults. I also used to teach what Emily taught, IB language and literature at a different private school here in Quito. I mentioned earlier as well, through this master's program, I had the opportunity to get a fellowship to study the main indigenous language here, Quechua. And I was able to, through my master's program classes as well, dig into research regarding the situation in bilingual rural schools here in Ecuador, bilingual being Quechua and Spanish. And so I am taking what I learned through my master's program and starting a project here, working in these rural bilingual schools to get them more resources and training for teachers to improve these schools and provide better education in these schools. And so that's been something really exciting that has come out of the master's program. What I alluded to earlier when I started the program, more just having a classroom focus, and then through the different opportunities with the master's program, it's kind of led me down this other path that I've been able to pursue as well. So that's those are my main focuses right now.
Thanks, Adrian. And then question I have for each of you is, what advice, if any, would you give to any current students or prospective students that might be interested in moving into your field? Start with Emily.
I think, like I was saying earlier, I think just being, very open to what your professors have you reading, the discussions that you have in class. Another thing that I really enjoyed about my program is that I was not only getting to learn from my professors, but I was also getting to learn from my colleagues in class, and getting to learn from other people who had professional experience and knowledge. And so, it was oftentimes something would come up in discussion and somebody would jump in and say, well, this is what I have done, in my classroom when, this question has arisen, or things like that. And so I also just found that really valuable, just working with other people who have similar career goals and passions, and just getting to learn from them. So just being open and, just understanding that you can learn from not just your professor, but everything that is offered in the course.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, so not too much to add to that. I would underscore that point, because I think that's one of the more unique attributes of a graduate program, that there's open discussion and dialogue, and everyone is there to learn from each other. And oftentimes the instructors are there to kind of guide the discussion. But it's a good opportunity to network with your classmates as well. Probably the one thing that I would add to this is thinking about joining professional organizations, whatever that might be. In international ed, it's often NASFA. So it just kind of depends on what your area is and where your interests lie. But I would add, I think, joining professional organizations too, and presenting. Travis did mention kind of the local conference, which is great. I had presented at that online conference during my time at UIUC, but also expanding out to more national conferences, again, depending on your field.
Thanks, Brian. Adrian.
Yeah, my advice for those wanting to enter into or advance into my particular field, which is similar to the advice that I mentioned earlier. In my case, it was previously mentioned networking and not being afraid to reach out and ask questions. For me, when I was wanting to switch careers, I just talked to anyone I could in the field. I talked to, um, you know, people who were already in the field that I knew of. Also, professors and faculty at UIUC, which is eventually why I chose this program as well. And yeah, not being afraid to ask questions, reach out and network. Also, like we mentioned, this being an online program, it's even more important to take that initiative and reach out and stay connected to people. Taking a class with people and exchanging emails to stay in touch even after the class ends. Um, Staying in touch with professors even after a course ends. That would be my biggest piece of advice because that's what really helped me the most in getting to where I am.
Thanks, Adrian. And now we're back to the opportunity where each of you can ask questions to our panelists about their careers or their fields. Want to give folks just a chance for questions for that too. And then we can go back if anybody had a question that didn't get answered about their student experiences or about the program or any other questions that folks want to get answered. We'll do our best.
So Travis, this is Ophelia again. I have what I call nitty-gritty type of question, and this is more about campus support. Did each of the panelists feel as though they had adequate access to the library and the librarian supports? And if you were doing statistical analysis and needed to consult with people, whether or not those supports were there, or you had some additional hurdles to go through because you were an online student. So if someone could speak to that, but sorry to put you on the spot, Brian. If Brian also can particularly speak to that because I'm interested in the doctoral program, that would be really great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. The initial answer to your question is yes. I can think of at least 3 classes in which the university librarian came to our classes virtually and spoke. That was very useful. I wish I could be as helpful and say like I remembered their name. I can't, so I'll be honest. That being said, I can tell you with 100% certainty that were they were asked to come to our classes and did. I would say again about 2 to 3 times, and so that was useful to have a face and a name, an email address, right? That kind of fast tracks things for you. So that was very useful. I did not find that being an online student in a doctoral program limited me in the sense that I didn't feel like I had the tools. But in my particular case, I work at a university too, and so I was able to ask questions of folks locally. So that was useful for me, and I recognize that that's not necessarily the case. I don't know where everyone lives and what their experiences are. But I did not, me personally, in terms of my experience in this program, I did not feel that limited me. Again, it's what you make out of it. I was super persistent and eager to reach out to my advisor because it needed to happen. Right. So the onus was on me. It's my responsibility. It's my time. It's my money. It's all on me. So if I'm not reaching out and asking for help, setting up meetings, reminding meetings, right? We're all adults. And so it all boiled down to us, in my opinion, to make that happen. If it doesn't, I don't know, but what I'll say is, right, I made it through. And so those were some of the particulars that I would highlight. That yes, you have to be your best advocate, self-advocate, and you can make it happen as long as you're persistent, as long as you form a really good relationship with your advisor primarily, and second, later down the line in terms of your committee, getting to know your committee. One thing I'll add is that even though the EdD program is a little bit shorter by comparison to a PhD, it took me, I think, 3.5 years to get through, which is again quicker by comparison. The point that I want to quickly make here is that the time still went by quite fast. And so by the time I had to form a committee, like I knew it was coming and I was able to reach out and form the committee. But I think in retrospect, one of those other pieces of advice that I would give is to try and really get to know your instructors earlier on, like know right in the back of your mind as you're going through the classes, getting to know your instructors, just making a short list, like, okay, this might be someone who I think has similar research interests. I drive, or we drive, it's a good fit, and just keep in touch with them, right? And maybe after the semester, pose that question, but talk it through with your advisor. Like, I think, this person, in addition to yourself, would be a great person potentially to be on my committee, right? And so you would maybe go through those motions by the time that you reach the point where you actually have to submit the form with the faculty names listed on that form that I'm also forgetting. But obviously there's a form, but I'm going to stop myself there to see if I answered all the parts of the questions.
No, that was really great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, of course.
Yeah, and I can add that as far as library resources go, our library is fully, open to all of our students in online programs and the master's programs, even in certificate programs. Also, they have access to be able to check out books either digitally, or library will even mail books to you, and you'll have to mail them back. But so that is there for students in all our programs.
Can I interject real quick, Travis?
Yep.
Okay, someone check me if I'm wrong. Nancy O'Brien, I was really trying to really, okay, see, I remembered. It took a minute, but it's there.
Yes, Nancy is the librarian that helps support our online students.
Perfect.
I was just going to say, I took advantage of the library resources of checking books out digitally, but I also had a few books that I was able to physically lend from the library, even though I live states away. I also, a system that they have is you can chat with a librarian and ask questions online as well. And so that was also something, if I got stuck or wasn't sure how to utilize a resource or get a hold of a resource, the librarians were always really friendly and willing to help.
Emily, I just wanted to also say thank you, because we're actually in the same state, and in county. So thank you so much for being a teacher in Fairfax County.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, thank you for just your interest, and go Virginia.
Indeed.
Any other questions from folks? Well, while folks are thinking, Sangeeta, did I skip you over when you had a question back in the previous section? We can open it up for all general questions now while people are thinking.
Yeah, so this question probably goes back to one of Travis's first questions about why you chose to pursue studying at the University of Illinois at the College of Education. So, the three of you have probably you have experienced that many of our online courses have synchronous meetings. And I think, Brian, you were also saying how you hurry home so you can catch the class meeting. So was that one of the reasons why you chose to study here at the College of Education, the fact that courses had synchronous meetings? Or did you find the synchronous meetings a bit inconvenient? Would you have preferred to have all your courses asynchronous? Just wondered how you experienced those.
I think
Yeah,
I have, oh, sorry, go ahead, Adrienne.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I like the synchronous because it helps keep me more engaged. And I mean, it's not in person face to face, but still having that virtual face to face was really important to me because I felt like it did help have more of that community feeling, all meeting together at the same time together and being able to talk through some of the readings and different assignments and have that real time engagement and feedback and questions answered. Because, like we talked about, with online, you do have to take a little bit more initiative and reaching out and staying connected. And so, having the synchronous just kind of helps with that. So, you don't have to take as much initiative as you would if it was asynchronous.
I had several classes in summer sessions that were asynchronous, and I found that to be really nice during the summer with travel and things like that, just having a little bit more flexibility if I was in a different time zone or something like that. But overall, I would just agree with what Adrienne said. I really enjoyed during the fall and spring the synchronous classes that I took, just because, like I was saying earlier, I feel like I really got to know my professors. I really got to know other students and learn from collaborating with other people. And also, I think that it also just kind of helped me stay engaged and invested in the class. But I did find it really valuable to have a little bit of flexibility, especially in the summer sessions.
Yeah, I would echo what our panelists have already mentioned it, but more directly, I would reiterate that yes, having the synchronous option was very convenient. I would say it's the next best thing, right, compared to having the class be in person. So absent that, yes, having the synchronous options were very convenient, very engaging. I guess I would compare it in this setting, right? Watching this as a recording, which is better than nothing, right? If you can't be here live, it's the next best thing to gain some information. But then you can ask those questions in real time, live in real time. And so having that opportunity in a classroom setting to still make connections with your instructors and your peers was definitely great. And again, I can't say this enough, but it is what you make of it. And so having the opportunity to engage with my classmates in real time as well was super useful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone. While folks are thinking of the next question, I also just have one last Zoom poll. Just I know folks may be running off to other things. We still have some time here, but if you could give us feedback on how things went before you leave, if you have to take off, we'd appreciate that. Also, while folks are thinking, I
So
know
Travis, I
Brian
am
said,
one of those people who,
go ahead.
so I was just going to say, I am one of those people who have to drop off, but I wanted to thank the panelists for taking time this evening out of your schedules to do this. It was very helpful and informative, and I certainly hope everyone have a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday.
Thanks, Ophelia. Have a great night. And if anybody else has to take off, if you're watching this recording back later, you can reach us at onlineprograms@education.illinois.edu. Us and online programs, we'll be happy to answer any of your questions. If you're interested in getting in touch with any of the panelists, we can help orchestrate that also. All right, looks like folks are taking off. I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording. Thank you all for coming out this evening or watching this back later. We really appreciate your time and interest in online programs in the College of Education.